again, but just to remind you, in the last few minutes, Judge Masipa has come to the crux of the whole 6 months of this trial, day 43 of the court sitting in the Oscar Pistorius murder trial. She has found Oscar Pistorius guilty of the culpable homicide of Reeva Steenkamp and also guilty of a lesser firearms charge relating to the discharge of a gun in a restaurant earlier. And with me, William Booth, who's a South African lawyer watching this very closely. William, what happens now if the prosecution the state really feels that there's been a legal error, that Oscar Pistorius is, in their eyes, guilty of this murder charge, dolus eventualis, rather than culpable homicide? What are the options? I mean, how closed is the case?
Well, it's not over yet, because after the sentencing proceedings, the sentence relating to the culpable homicide charge and the one firearm charge. So that must first be concluded, and then he must be sentenced on those charges. The state can then, on a point of law, approach the court and apply for leave to appeal. If that is granted, then the appeal process kicks in, and that could mean appeal to the full bench of the North Gauteng High Court, or it could be appeal to the Supreme Court of Appeal, which will then decide on this aspect. And on the other hand, it might be an appeal at some point to the Constitutional Court. And the state might argue, well, this may be some sort of a constitutional challenge, because the Constitutional Court only deals with aspects relating to the Constitution. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but it's something that one must start thinking about. So I believe the prosecution are going to be doing that and arguing that it's a question of law that has been wrongly interpreted. You know, the law is there. What does the law say with dolus eventualis? What does it say with regard to culpability pertaining to self-defense? And applying the facts to the law. Did the judge err? And that is something that may take place in the future. And I think they're going to seriously consider doing this. So
potentially we might not be at the end at all. This could go on for a substantial amount longer.
It could. Appeals could take 2 to 3 years. But we first have to deal with the sentence, and that should be done in the next foreseeable 2 or 3 weeks, maybe a month. I don't believe it's going to take place today, but maybe they're ready to go. But thinking as a lawyer, if I was in the court, I'd certainly ask for time, and thinking as a prosecutor, I'd certainly also ask for time to consider what has happened yesterday and today, and then before they proceed on to the sentencing stage of the matter.
Thinking as a lawyer, I wonder what your assessment is of both sides, the state and the defence, and how they've played this.
Well, look, I think it's been clear from the beginning. The state has gone hammer and tongs to try and prove premeditated murder. The defence has dealt with a lot of peripheral issues, and the judge yesterday alluded to this in dealing with the contamination of the crime scene. You know, you'll remember that the defence were attacking all the police witnesses, that the crime scene had not been properly sealed off. That, anyway, played really no role in this case. It can be criticised that the police can mess up a crime scene, and it can be crucial and lead to an acquittal of a guilty person in another case, but not in this particular instance. So, you know, a lot of evidence was led that I think was quite unnecessary, but very important. The judge said Oscar was a poor witness, but he testified well when he testified being asked questions by his counsel. So it came about as very vigorous, aggressive, and extensive cross-examination by the public prosecutor now that, caused the judge to say, Oscar, you're a useless witness. That's pretty much what I think she was alluding to and said.
And the defence, Barry Roux, has succeeded in getting his client off a premeditated murder charge.
Well, yes, I think that's quite a significant aspect, and they must be very pleased with where they are at the moment. If you'd started this case looking back, I think any defence lawyer would have said to their client, think about a plea on a lesser charge of culpable homicide, negotiating a plea and sentence agreement with the state. It might not have come to fruition. The state might have turned around and said, sorry, we're carrying on with the murder charge. But, maybe he should have pleaded guilty to the culp charge anyway in the beginning. But I think the defence can be very happy that they've got rid of all the other charges. On the other hand, if this goes on appeal to the Supreme Court of Appeal, we might have a change of conviction, and then the sentence that is imposed for murder would be very different to a sentence imposed for culpable homicide.
William, stay with us. Thank you very much for the moment. But Of course, looking at the amount of media attention that this trial has garnered, considering particularly where it's taking place, a country that has so many murders, so much violence against women in particular each year, just reminds you of what a figure Oscar Pistorius was before those terrible hours of the 14th of February last year, and just what a superstar, what an icon he was for people all over the world. Dan Rowan has this look back at his career before that fateful night.